So you've done the self-help and you've dipped into some personal development, but now you ask the question, now what? What can you do? Well, if you want to escape the apathy, step right this way. So twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week personal development and training course. What people get out of it is multifaceted. There's curriculum, there's exercises, there's camaraderie, you make new friends. There's a whole lot of interesting things. We're going to hear a sample from the course right now in its ongoing season. Let's take a look at the value these students are getting.
Hey, I just want to say, man, I mean, I'm so thankful. I mean, words can't express the thankfulness in my mind for you, brother. I mean,
Much.
changed my life. Made the real greater deal happen. Got that done. Uh, there's just so many things that, and it's not like it's a major transformation, right? It's just small little steps that are needed to kind of veer this huge ship. And just, all it was off was 1 degree, right? So I mean, it didn't take wasn't like we were headed in the wrong direction by any means. It's just a little bit here and a little bit there. And uh yeah, man, I mean, like I said, I there's really no words for the amount of appreciation and the amount of admiration that I have for you, man.
Well, I appreciate it, but you're right in the observation insofar as it's little changes that lead to those big effects, and the smaller changes at the beginning lead to larger effects as you go across the country. I had a boss one time explain it like this. He said, when a plane takes off from, New York and it's going to San Francisco, it's not really going towards San Francisco 99% of the time. It's always off course and course correcting to get back online to where it needs to be. There's wind, there's all sorts of other stuff that goes on. So even though the plane always goes and does the thing, it doesn't always happen in exactly the same way ever twice, if that makes sense.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
most definitely.
Yeah. So we have to learn that about ourselves. And when we find we're trying to get from A to B and we're on the zigzag line and not the nice dotted line, between the 2 points, we're like, we're off in the weeds. We just did this thing and now we got to go back to the beginning and try again. And, we're making progress, but those ebbs and flows quiet down as we get more experience along the timeline to the point where, okay, so here's a good example. We rent, and part of the rental are kitchen appliances. However, when kitchen appliances break, I usually end up fixing them because the process of calling my landlord, who's not very competent, and then whatever he does takes a long time. And I don't have time to wait. So when our microwave broke last week, and here's how it broke. This is a good one because it could happen to any of you because this happens with all microwaves. So I'm a professional in microwaves now. I'll just share this with you. There's three switches in the handles for safety reasons. After use of the handles, these little switches break. And then people buy new microwaves or they spend $300 calling a repair person when really it's only three screws and $7 away. And so, me, like, well, you saw the video about on Friday night about polishing your shoes and ironing your clothes. Like, I'm not supposed to be doing this work, it's way below my pay grade. But the frustration in my family of not having the microwave in the kitchen is such that I'm willing to do these things. I had to do it twice too. So my point would be the first time I did it, it was a little arduous. I had to figure stuff out. But when I did it the first time, the light goes on when you close it instead of light going on when you open it. So I was really close and I knew I just had to switch backwards or something. So the second time I took it apart with so much more excellence because I knew what I was doing. I knew where the screws were. I knew how to get the wires and undo the harnesses and stuff like that. So microwave is now fixed. Costs $7 for three switches on Amazon and two YouTube videos. It wouldn't have been done till after Christmas if I called the landlord. So knowing how to engage properly with these situations, because I could easily ignore that and say it's below my pay grade and cause a lot of frustration in the house. That's unnecessary, right? So there in that learning process, my first time through was pretty jagged and I broke a little tab on the plastic and stuff like that, right? But the second time through was pretty smooth. So just between one repetition and the second one, I gained like 75% proficiency. And just imagine if I did that for a living, how easy it would be for me to pop by and make 150 bucks by and I'm out because people don't know how to watch YouTube and order from Amazon apparently, right? So we all have these capabilities, but very few people go through the trouble to. It's like we have these. It's like I had a vision of it yesterday. It's like you have this labyrinth and you're trying to flood it. And by flooding the entire labyrinth, that's you realizing your potential. But a lot of us, like, we get one little area and we're like, oh, that's us. It's like, no, you got to get all into these other areas of development, and then that's you, right? And so for people to kind of understand that, like by the end of your lifetime, what are the capabilities that you've picked up for yourself? What does that look like? What lifestyle do you want? And then reverse engineering back to be like, I need to build competence every year in these various areas in order to get there. And very few people have that type of strategic learning curve, which I think is much more important than goals. If you do these types of learnings and give yourself these skills and experiences along the way, all these other goals are made easily possible by doing these other things. So it's the willingness to go into the zigzag of, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to break some stuff. And if you break it, like you just order another part. That's all. We have to be willing to take these little pieces of risk. Um, the biggest risk is not unplugging the microwave before you play with it. So I always try to make sure, like, let's start clean by unplugging it, and now we're good to play. Um, but yeah, so I go through those learning curves too, and I try to embrace them like puzzles because they're more fun that way. Otherwise, it seems like, right? So
Yeah,
you have to learn how to, what's the mentality you need to do to trick yourself into doing the thing you need to do.
yeah, and then it's it's so satisfying when you get done, and then the sense of accomplishment. You're like, yeah, man, I did it.
Yeah, I could boil water now. Look at that.
Heck
Without,
yeah.
without
Plus, I
getting a
need
pot.
to, which is a double bonus. But yeah,
Yeah,
I just wanted to say too, man. I mean, so the Friday night lecture of you sharing your story with us, man. I mean,
Mm.
for me, it just, I mean, really tightened the circle so much. I mean, that's a friendship that'll last forever.
well, the trials and tribulations that you guys got on Friday night, that's the light version. I was looking to see if the heavier version is over here. I'm just gonna put this link in the chat, copy, and then I hit chat over here, and then I hit Control V, enter. Now you should have it. That's the Peace Revolution podcast. Somewhere in there, like episode, I don't know, 20 or something. There was the fifth anniversary of Project Constellation. If you listen to that, it's a lot more hair raising of a unfolding of the narrative than I provided on Friday night. So if you liked Friday night, it gets even more interesting, and the evidence that you get into is mind blowing. But that's too much for school type activities.
Yeah, yeah. When I was looking at you had that pile of papers, I'm like, so it reminds me, I didn't go through something that was near as big of a deal as you did, but I got hung up with the cops and just here in our own little town, and they tried to give me a DUI. Well, they did give me a DUI, and so I wouldn't take a blood test. So here in Colorado, right, you can do either one. You can do a breath test or a blood test. Well, I
Sure.
blew, so I told them I ain't going to do a blood test. Right? You guys ain't jamming me with nothing, man. Just ain't happening. So when they asked me if I'd do a breathalyzer, I automatically did a breathalyzer. Well, I blowed completely below the legal limit, but they
Yeah.
never told me that.
Of course,
So
I mean, because it's a revenue generating operation. They're not safety people. They use
yeah,
safety as the excuse for revenue generation, and they make the most revenue when they incarcerate. Like
so
tickets are nice, but when they can put people in a cage and charge for the food and laundry and clothes, like all the stuff, the guarding of it, that's very lucrative profit base for
yeah,
some
so
people.
they threw the book at me, and so I got this attorney, and he totally dropped the ball. And so I figured it out on myself. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but I was able to. I mean, and it took me a few weeks, man. I mean, you talk about in a bad place, right? But I was able to take back the deferred sentence and start back to square one because I couldn't even find an attorney that would help me. So I did
And
all that on my own, man, and finally found an attorney after a certain amount of time after I did all that legwork on my own to get where I needed to go without any help. And then finally the attorney, the next attorney I got, he's like, man, it says right on the transcript to the dispatch that you blew below the legal limit completely. So I mean, we were going to sue the county and all kind of stuff, but we ended up just letting it kind of
It's
go
these are
away.
interesting problems that we like because we're trying to live our life, but they've set up these other snares, and sometimes you get caught up into them, right? And sometimes even when you can find a lawyer, the lawyer's going to tell you some stuff you don't want to hear. Like, yes, you might have footage or evidence of this, but you can't go to court with that evidence against this group because they will play dirty. They will play dirty with other agencies. They will cause you pain in areas that you don't even see coming. And so, what you're going to need to do is let them lie. Okay. And you're going to need to agree to their, it's a whole breaking of the law within the legal system. And they want you to participate like it's authentic. And then, so there's a whole bunch of quagmires that are not put on people's radars that they don't find out about until it's too late. I thought that was cruel and unusual. So if I could go out and map all the quicksand parts and put fences around them and signs and say, enter at your own risk, then we would all be having a better time at this amusement park called Earth, right? Unbeknownst to me at the time, there was people that profit a lot from those quicksand places, and they don't like when you're taking away their customers and all sorts of other things that go on with that. So, yeah, it's it's there's terrain that is continually unfolding to be charted and navigated that hasn't been encountered before. It's an interesting aspect of our modern day reality.
Indeed. So yeah, my hat's off to you, buddy. Uh,
Well, thank
Basically,
you.
I love you, man. I really do.
Happy Christmas to you and your family, and also you have been showing up for yourself the whole time, right? So this is a good discipline that you formed for yourself that you're finding benefit in. And I'm part of that because I'm here to attract your participation. But you're the equal and opposing part of that because you've been showing up for yourself and going through the hard, arduous process of improvement. And it's easy to point out what others are doing wrong, but it's the harder work that we need to do of like, what do we need to do to improve?
Yeah, man.
It's the more meaningful work, and it's meaningful to other people and how we're able to interact.